الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. What is the greatest wajib that we have when it comes to our obligation? Quran says that كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. That you are the best nation produced for mankind. You enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong and believe in Allah. Commanding the good and forbidding evil is what, according to this verse, makes us the best nation. And if you look at many other ways of life or religions, maybe there is not that emphasis in being obligated to, in reality, help others out with their religion, with their action. Commanding the good, we have to talk about tonight. What does good mean? What does ma'ruf even mean? What does munkar mean? What is despised or what is not liked mean? Or what is wrong? Can society itself define munkar? Can society decide what is ma'ruf? Does time define it? What defines it? Two, we have to see, when is it wajib? How important is this wajib? Some of the narrations we'll mention tonight is that, and I'll read it, if you were to put all of the wajibat, all of our obligations, even jihad, in one side, and if you were to put al-amr bil-ma'ruf on the other, which one do you think would outweigh? Not only does it outweigh, Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha says it's comparing a drop to a deep ocean. A drop into a deep ocean. Why? Because everything else relies on commanding the good. If we are indifferent and we are like many religions today and just say live and let live, do whatever you want to do and let others live however they want to live, well, what is going to happen then? It means that I individually am going to decide and have a good life, a religious life, but my community, my neighbors, my family, my friends can behave however they want. What is the problem with that logically? The problem is that I am going to be influenced by my own society. I am going to have kids here. I'm going to have grandchildren. I'm going to have family here. And they will be influenced with whatever society, if society is a good society, they will be influenced. If it's going to be an evil society, they will also be influenced. So I have to take care of those around me in reality so that my family, myself, can be taken care of. Have you ever gone to a good community, a pious city, a pious part of town? Not that, all cities are the same. There are parts of towns, certain streets, they're very religious. And you see how that helps those children be nurtured with Holy Quran, with teachings of Islam, and how much they go forward. Compared to places, there's nothing. Even when it comes to cities in the United States, there are cities where sin is more prevalent in other cities. I don't know where Los Angeles ranks on this, but that's up to you for you to decide. But some cities are much more conservative. Some cities, like in the Midwest, they're much more religious. And that actually does even have an effect on life there itself. So what we're going to talk about is this most important wajib. When you look at the story of Prophet Ibrahim, one of the great examples of a person who commanded the good. One who, according to some versions of the story, who was hidden. When he came out of the cave, he saw people worship other than Allah which is against our fitra, against our nature. He saw people worshipping the sun, people worshipping the stars, and he says, my God cannot set, that is not my God. And he commanded the good by asking them these questions and giving them logical demonstrations. Then they showed him idols, or they showed him idols before. And he made very, very clear when everyone went to the feast and went to the festival, he had one of the idols, he showed that one of the idols went and destroyed all the other ones. To show him this, that if they could talk, if they had, ability, it is the largest idol who broke all the other idols. So eventually fighting against his society at a young age, because they were doing something that is wrong in terms of ideology, which is one of the worst sins. Therefore, they got sick of him. Get rid of this Ibrahim. What is he doing? They built a fire that was so great, so grand. And you hear the story. They had to build a catapult to launch him in this fire. Not just like they dragged him in the fire. They built a catapult to launch him. Why? Because he commanded the good. He forbid the evil. But remember, and the narrations tell you, when you work for Allah, when you sacrifice for God and deen, God is with you and He will protect you. And that fire became cool for Ibrahim alayhi salam. And therefore, you see, he is one of the great examples of the commander of, commanding the good and forbidding the evil. So let's go through some of the narrations. In the narrations, I want you to pay attention to these. I'm going to read them in detail. Give us, it's a rude awakening for us that what happens if I do not command the good? What happens if I do salat, I do siyam, I fast, I perform, but I do not like to enjoy the good. I do not like to forbid the evil. I'm too bashful, I'm too afraid, I don't care about others, and I just want to have my own Islam. What happens? And the narrations will explain this. Later on tonight, we'll talk about what are the stages of commanding the good. How is it done first? Then what is the next stage? What is the next stage? We'll talk about tonight what are the conditions of commanding the good, forbidding the evil. Are there conditions for it to become wajib? The Risala talks about 5 conditions. We'll talk about those 5 conditions. And then we'll talk about a very interesting topic is, can society make rules to enforce wajibat and to make sure that muharramat do not exist in society? Or should, for example, the society leave people alone and let them choose whatever path they want to, if they want to sin or not, openly allow them to? Or should society not allow individuals to sin openly? This is because of commanding the good and forbidding the evil. And when you look at this more deeply, once I went to the office of Ayatollah al-Ulama Sistani, I talked about the issue of Gaza and Palestine. I asked, and I said, is it wajib shar'an? Because the office is going to give you answers according to the Sharia. Is it wajib to help them? Is it obligatory to assist them however I can? In terms of commanding the good and forbidding the evil, what other more evil do you have than dhulm and oppression and killing? I said, yes. It's wajib, as long as it has an effect. We'll talk about the conditions. As long as there's ihtimal al-ta'thir, there's a possibility of effect, it is wajib. So therefore, this is one of those topics that we will address some parts of it, but the rest of it, you should decide, how, and I'm going to perform this. The methodology is up to you. Shahid Mutahari talks about this great wajib and talks about how people do not perform it correctly. And that many of the mu'mineen, when it comes to commanding the good, they think that just as long as you tell somebody, hey, do your prayer, hey, hijab, hey, don't drink. See Allah, I did it, I said it, I commanded the good, I did amr, right? I used fi'l amr in Arabic, right? So my taklif is done. But is it that simple? And is that even what amr ma'ruf is? Just telling someone something? Or is it when you open up, this concept and how he instructs us and teaches us, is that you are grabbing somebody's hand and you are helping him and you are assisting them. I remember once I was in the Hawza and there's a big mujtahid that used to teach in the Hawza Ilmiya of Ayatollah Mujtahidi. There was a great scholar, Ayatollah Sajjadi, near Sajjadi. I asked him once, I said that, there are individuals who in Iran, they do not have hijab. And, there's family gatherings. And some of them would say, no, we do not want you to participate in our gatherings, for example. Or they would tell them off. I would ask him, I said, do you have to tell these people that don't wear hijab of your family, tell them, put on the hijab, if you know that telling them such a thing will cause them to resent Islam, will cause them to get offended. To be honest, even me and you, if I just tell you right now, what kind of shirt are you wearing? What is this you're wearing, for example? Where did you buy it? Why did you wear that? You'd get offended by what I'm dressing. People are sensitive these days. You can't really tell them much. They get offended. So therefore, you see that he answered, he says, actually such, from what I remember, performing amr ma'ruf this way and offending somebody and making them not like Islam anymore, that can be haram itself. Because such a person, you should be talking about other parts of deen. Do they pray? Do they do salat? Give in a way very beautifully. If you look at the story of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhimus salam, you see their story that a person didn't perform, an elder person didn't perform their wudu properly. Now, two children, even though they're the grandchildren of Rasulullah, they tell this old man it could be offensive. So how did they do it? The story has, they said, old man, see how we're performing wudu. Is it correct or not? They perform wudu. And the old man says, no, your wudu is correct, mine is wrong. See how gently, how nicely Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein would teach someone, which is part of Irshad al-Jahil. This is not Amr Ma'ruf. Irshad al-Jahil means that if somebody does not know their wajibat, it's wajib on us to teach them. If they are doing it wrong, they're doing it wrong, you have to teach them. But in what manner? How? Some people, and this is, some people are in such a way, if you tell them, look, why don't you pray? They'll answer, they say, I never ever want to pray again because you told me so. When you tell them, they'll say this. So I never want to pray because you told me so. If I want to pray Allah, it's between me and Allah. So we have to look at the correct methodology, the correct path of how to encourage what is good and to forbid what is evil, what is wrong. If you do it in the wrong way, then you're going to be very annoying. If you look at today, some of the people who knock on your doors, Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, how effective do you think they are? Knocking on their door, I don't know if they still do this or not. You're eating supper, you're with your friends or family, and somebody knocks at the door, you're wondering who is it? Do you want to be a Jehovah's Witness? And that time, you don't really even like that religion anymore. You don't like that approach because you feel they have infringed on your family and your house. That's not the appropriate time for, there's an appropriate time for everything. So unfortunately, religious people have gotten this wrong, and this is not the path of the prophets. The prophet actually keeps telling us that invite people with your action. Be so good that you invite people with your own action. So you have to be creative as Muslim parents, as those who have siblings, as those who care about their family, because commanding the good, enjoining the good, and forbidding the evil is more shadid when it comes to your own family. You have more responsibility when it comes to your own family. But at least you should not be indifferent. You should always think, whenever I'm with a group of people, I'm always thinking, how can I approach them? What can I say? Maybe I can ask them a question. Maybe it could be a topic that would interest them about Islam somehow, because everyone is interested about one aspect of Islam. Maybe you can have a nice dialogue, talk, or you could just mention something, but without being very intruding. But some people, yes, sometimes if that sin is so bad, yes, you need to make sure that it does not happen. We'll talk about the stages of commanding the good and forbidding the evil. Whoever wants to hear these narrations, please recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Even if he didn't say salawat because I have to command the good, I wouldn't have to say it anyways. Let's look at the narration from Imam Ali first. In Nahjul Balagha, if you want to write notes, especially the young scholars that we have here, this is Hadith 374. Remember this and go tell your family members. Tonight, say it. Say the nice Hadith from Hadith 374 from Nahjul Balagha. وما أعمال البر كلها والجهاد في سبيل الله عند الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر إلا كنفثة في بحر لجي. Imam Ali alayhi salam is narrated to have said, all the virtuous deeds, including war in the way of God, every a'mal, everything, all our good deeds, all our wajibat, as compared to the persuasion to good and dissuasion from evil, are just like spitting in the deep ocean. It's like a piece of, one drop of, say, saliva compared to the deep ocean. If you compare all our wajibat, where? In Nahj al-Balagha. Then he continues, وَإِنَّ الْأَمْرِ مَعْرُوفَ وَنَهْيَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ لَا يُقَرَّبَانَ مِنْ أَجَلٍ. Persuasion from good and dissuasion from evil do not bring death nearer. Allah will protect you. وَلَا يَنْقَصَانَ مِنْ رِزْقِهِ وَأَفْضَلُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ كَلَمَةُ عَدْلٍ عِنْدَ إِمَامٍ جَائِرٍ. And from all of this, what is the highest is saying a just statement to an oppressor. If you ever see a king, a ruler, a president, one who is saying what is wrong and commanding what is wrong, and you say a just statement to him, this is the highest. I remember in the story of our leader, in one of the autobiographies that he's had, and I believe some of this has been translated in English, he says that there was a time where because of his activities, he would get into very much trouble. And because of the Sabak, or different intelligent organizations, they would monitor him and watch him. And it's very interesting, when I say this from the beginning, when he says, I got married, every once a week we would see the in-laws. Once a week we would see the in-laws. And then when they came to get Imam Khomeini, and the scholars and Mashhad came together to see what we can do, because now obviously the agencies, the security agencies are going to be watching this meeting and seeing what they're doing. He says that I had to do this, I had to go to this meeting, even though it was at the same day that I visit my in-laws regularly. And I told my wife, I told her, apologize, I cannot attend our weekly family, or I cannot attend this gathering. I'm going to go to a gathering that either I won't come back from this gathering, I'll die from it, or I'll be imprisoned. This is me, this is who you married. So actually he said that she accepted this and encouraged this and accepted this, understood this. So this is the life of our leader from at a younger age, when he was just gotten married. Later on, his activity increases and he himself becomes a target. And one of the he says this in his autobiography, that one of the great, high directors of the intelligence now called me, one who had a very bad reputation. He did tawassul to Imam Qadim or to Imam Rida alayhi salam, because he knew if this person wrote it, he would be in prison and tortured. There's not a joke, this is serious. So to understand, how our scholars and how our leaders, they really implemented and commanded the good and forbid the evil. Then he says that I went to this meeting, this interrogation. When it comes to us, like if a police officer, pulls us over for a red light, we're like nervous or speeding or trying to lie and get out of it. I had emergency, this car was on autopilot, I didn't know what it was doing, for example. But he comes and he says, I remember that when it comes to a arrogant person, be the same way. Reciprocate with pride. with, show him like arrogance, kibr, for example. And that's, the narrations also say this. So he said, I yelled at him, and I told him off as much as I could, expecting, him to, deal with me this way. But actually the opposite happened. And he says he was afraid, and he was surprised. He says, you go. You're free to go. So this is the life that we look at our scholars that existed today, and that we can learn from them. I said from Prophet Ibrahim, I gave you examples from our leader, and we're going to go into some other narrations. If you want to hear it again, say salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajfar. This narration is in the book of Al-Kafi. There's a chapter of enjoining the good. Imam Baqir alayhi salam gives this narration. Again, this is one of those scary narrations and scary hadith, that there will be a time period. يكون في آخر الزمان قوم يتبع فيهم قوم مراؤون يتقرؤون ويتنسكون هداثا وسفهاء. They are a group of people that will be following the hypocrites. They'll be following at the end of times, Akhir Zaman, those who show off, those who recite the Quran. And today we see some of these reciters, so beautiful they recite from hifth. You're just wondering, how does he memorize and perform with hifth so long? And then they say, for example, wipe them out, a Muslim country, open the doors of hell to them, wipe them out, for example. You see? Do these narrations, are they for these type of people? Is it Akhir Zaman? I'm not saying it is or not, but you can imagine it's very similar to these times. They do not consider enjoining the good or forbidding the evil. So how many reciters, perfect recitation, Gaza happened, Palestine happened, nothing. Completely. Why? This is one of the worst sins, suppression. It's genocide. Unless they are safe from harm. They're not going to do anything unless they're safe from harm. They seek concessions and excuses for themselves. Imam Baqir beautifully said they seek excuses. Who are these people? These are Muslims. People reciting Quran. People that are praying. People that are fasting at the end of times. But they do not care to enjoy the good and forbid the evil. Then it says that they follow the slips of scholars. It continues, they devote themselves to prayer and fasting, and whatever does not cost them personally or financially. They will pray and fast as long as there's no harm, there's no cost. They don't want to sacrifice anything. But if prayer harmed them, Imam Baqir says, in the tradition, their worldly interests involving their wealth or bodies, they would abandon it. If salat would harm them, they would even abandon salat. Just as they have abandoned the greatest and noblest of obligations. It says here, Asma al-Fara'id wa ashrafaha. Then it says, Inna al-amr bi-ma'ruf wa nahi al-munkar faridatun azima. Imam Baqir says, it's a tremendous obligations. Biha tuqamu al-fara'id. With this obligation, all the other wajibats are established. If you do not care for your own children, if you do not care for your own neighbors, not care for your own family, if you do not care for your society and people, then nobody else is going to pray anymore, nobody else is going to worship anymore, and salat is going to be forgotten, Sawm is going to be forgotten. But if you care and you work, and you have a strategy, and you have a correct methodology, and you give life, you give Islam as life, hayat, to your friends and families and society, then salat will be established, then praying will be established, then people will become religious. Then it says that, continues, indeed, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is the path of the prophets, is sabilul anbiya. This is what the prophets used to do. And how many of the prophets of Bani Israel, they killed the prophets, or they belied them and they harmed them. Why? Because the prophets came to rectify always something that was wrong in that society. Either they were trading and they were not doing good business, for example, or they're performing shirk and polytheism, or they're doing other haram acts that I do not want to mention here. Every society was doing something that was wrong. And these prophets came to change people. And therefore, you see, people ask this question always, and this is incorporated in it, and maybe we'll get into this next topic, is to what is now ma'ruf? What is munkar? Someone might say good and wrong is defined by me, by society today. In 2026, what is wrong? In 2026, here in our city, what is right? Whatever society says. What is the problem with if I interpret ma'ruf and munkar this way? What is the problem that comes to mind? If you allow just society to interpret this word. The problem is that 1 year, something will be good. And then next year, it will be bad. Or something will be good before, and then now will be bad. If you look at modesty, the way that people dress in Western culture, look at some of the videos and footage that exists from, say, around 80 years ago, 100 years ago in England and America. And even when they would go to the ocean, for example, what kind of attire they would wear. Compare that to now. Only 100 years in human history is nothing. But look, now covering is something that is, they might see something bad, it's oppression. Let your hair flow through the wind and let the sun hit the hair. Why don't you let that happen? If it's a good feeling, why are you pressing them? But yet we see, well, what happens when you change the rules of God and the prophets? Is that, well, what is the red line now? Now you have a society that you see how people are dressing, and it's not only in, like the beaches or whatever, and wherever you go in the mountains, same thing. You want to exercise, same thing. You want to take a walk, same thing. So society doesn't have a benchmark. People do not have a reference point to know how to behave. Because if you look 50 years ago, many actions were detested by people. And today it has become legal and they're promoting it. So society is degrading. If you allow society to define ma'ruf and munkar, if it has a downfall, you'll never be able to save it. But if you keep those lines consistent, and you keep what is haram and halal consistent with what the Prophet, the Quran, and the Ahlul Bayt ﷺ said, then you can judge society to see how far has society been led astray from this benchmark. And this is the main issue that most people don't understand about Islamic law, is that Islamic law comes from a law that is from 1400 years ago, that is for the Day of Judgment, has been designed for the Day of Judgment, because the halal of Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, is halal to the Day of Judgment. There's no debate about that. But that point of reference, that benchmark, is supposed to be preserved, that human beings should not, behave in this fashion. Human beings have, because this code is a code that as long as man lives, he needs this code. Man needs to have a dress code, right? So God has to define it. Man needs to be able to talk to God. So this salat is going to be to the Day of Judgment. Man needs a time period from one of the months to worship more. So we need Shahr Ramadan. Man needs to fight his lower desires and abstain from food and drink, to fight against himself for different reasons, to feel how the poor feel, for example, or to become healthy, or to develop taqwa and get strong willpower. So Allah created Shahr Ramadan and fasting. So all these things in Islam are going to be for the Day of Judgment. They've been designed, because as long as humans exist, they need to talk to God, they need to worship God, they need to be modest, they need to know how to deal with one another, they need to know how to do business, for example, they need to know not to charge interest with one another. All these things, this framework is to the Day of Judgment. But the problem is, one of the professors here in Southern California who teaches Islam 101 in one of the main universities in Southern California, he says to non-Muslims, when they ask them, what about this rule, what about this law in Islam? He tells them that wait until the end of class, I'll explain. Wait till the end of class, at the end of the semester. He says, because you are gauging this with your modern life, and you're trying to judge what is right and wrong according to what you are accustomed to now, I say in 2026, 2025. But if you look at it differently and say, well, maybe what we practice and believe in today is wrong. Maybe some of the actions that we're performing is something that God does not like anymore, that God does not want people to behave in that way. Then you understand the Islamic rulings. When you understand the time period that these rulings were brought for mankind, you understand the philosophy of these rulings. So therefore, ma'aruf, the only way to define ma'aruf is by kitab and sunnah, is by the kitab and the traditions of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. That is the benchmark. And that is what is so, for many people attractive about Islam, is that you have preserved the way of life of the prophets. But other religions have devalued and changed and watered down religion, making everything you do. You see some says, I'm very religious. They go, I'm very religious. You look at them, what about you is religious? You're not doing anything that is religious. Look at the life of you and Prophet Isa alayhi salam. There's nothing that you perform that his lifestyle is completely different than your lifestyle. The way you dress, the way you behave, what you eat, is completely different than his. So therefore, these two things, ma'ruf and munkar, has to be judged by the Quran, by the prophets, and by Islam. And this is one of the attractive parts, because people want a way of life that changes them. If it's going to be watered down, it's not going to have an effect on their life. They're going to behave just like everyone else who's an atheist in society. A believer's life should be different. A believer should have a code, a way of life that will change them. There will be a revolution from within for them. And that is why we say ma'ruf and munkar should be defined by God, not defined by humans. It should be defined by God, by the Sharia. Please recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajab. We're going to wrap it up. I think this is a good introduction to this topic, and I'm going to give 5 conditions of how it becomes wajib, and we'll end. The first condition is knowledge. If I'm going to command the good and forbid the evil, I have to know this is wajib. I have to know this is haram. I can't say, I think it might be wajib. Stop doing that. I think it might be wajib. It doesn't make sense. You have to know that the rule that they're breaking you're sure, you have knowledge, it is haram. 2, which is the most important, probability of influence, ihtamalu ta'sir or ta'thir. I command the good, enjoin the good, and forbid the evil to those who there's a chance that they will listen. But if I'm going to go to one person who they'll never listen to me, I'm sure they won't. And every day I'm like, do this, do this. It's something that is useless. You give advice to someone that there's a chance they'll listen. Or else I can just go and talk to the wall and say, wall, do your salat, wall, do your salat, for example. So 2 is ihtimalu ta'thir. I look at people who can be influenced, especially the young hearts, especially the youth. These are individuals, but how do I do it? Youth are very sensitive today. You have to encourage them. One of the people who was shaheed and martyred in summer last June, he was encouraging, he had a very high position. He was encouraging his family members to attain Friday prayers. Friday prayers, there's a lot of barakat. Some people say if you want your prayers, this is not advertisement for our Friday prayers, but if you want your Friday prayer, something to be answered, you have a hajjah, attend Friday prayers and ask Allah. Friday prayers has a lot of sawab, a lot of reward. He says for these kids, because they like swimming, he says as a package. He said, if you come with me to Friday prayers, I will take you swimming. If it's very busy at a very high position. If you come with me to Friday prayers, I'll take you swimming. But if you do not come to Friday prayers, you won't go swimming. It's together. And kids, they love swimming. So therefore, he would encourage them to attend the Friday prayers, and then he would take them swimming afterwards. So think of ways to encourage, not to degrade a person's personality. You're always looking at positive, reinforcing a positive behavior. If you see behavior that's good, to reinforce it with encouragement. As we say, tashfiq kardan, you do things that are very good for you, and you keep them, they get very motivated. The third is persistence in wrongdoing. That person you're going to help out, that they are going to keep committing this haram. It's not like it's just once and then they're going to have, seek forgiveness and they stop doing it. There's persistence in wrongdoing. Fourth, there's no excuse. Some people, they're excused. They're in a situation where they're allowed to do something that for you is haram, for them it's halal. They have to have medication. The doctor says you have to have this medication. It might be haram for you to consume, but wajib for them to have. It's okay. So don't, or maybe they're even like traveling and they're not fasting. You can't go to that person, why are you fasting? The fifth is absence of significant harm. If commanding the good, enjoining the good, forbidding the evil causes you significant harm, then it is not wajib. It's very interesting. I'll end with this story about one of our great ulama and mujtahideen, Ayatollah Bafqi. Ayatollah Bafqi is buried in the shrine of Hazrat Fatima Ma'asuma. And he was one of those scholars that had a great connection to Imam al-Zaman, Ajallah Ta'ala Fajr Sharif. So whenever he would make prayer, he would do tawassul to the Imam of the age. They had need in the house of supplies, like things that they needed for the tullab and students. This is 70, 80 years ago. And he would say, is it important? They said, yes. He said, I will get it for you. Not that he was rich. He said, I will get it for you. For 1 week, he would ask and humbly beg Imam al-Zaman to bring this, answer their prayers, answer this prayer. And then next week, it would be answered. Next week, it would be answered. This is such a person. So one time, he saw Raza Khan. This is the king of Iran that was, very against Islam and against hijab, against the majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And he came with his family to visit Hazrat Fatima Ma'asuma. The family didn't really have good hijab. They didn't have good attire because when you visit a holy place, you should cover yourself. And this old person came and he confronted the Shah. Remember, we said one of the best things is to tell the ruler, kalamatul adl, a good a speech, a sentence of justice. He came and told him, he said that if you are Muslim, this family, to the wife, to the family of the Prophet, family of the Shah, if you are a Muslim, then why are you coming to do ziyarat this way? Why are you disrespecting Hazrat al-Masum? Where's the hijab? If you're Muslim, this is a religious place. Respect the laws of Islam. If you are not Muslim, then why are you even here? Then why are you doing ziyarah? Very strong argument. They told the Shah the news that there's this guy, he confronted us, and the Reza Khan took him and hit him so hard, and they say forced his boots on his face. They say all they could hear from him was, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, Ya Sahib al-Zaman. So we have ulama and scholars who were like this, courageous. And even when it came to people that others were, their hands would shake when they would talk to, they would command the good and join the good. So hopefully we can be the best nation, best community, if we do this. Do not say that live and let live. That we have a duty to save one another. That's what Amr al-Ma'ruf Nahy al-Munkar is, to save one another. That you cannot just think of yourself, I'm responsible for everyone right now. If you were to drive and see a car accident and somebody is in need of 911 emergency services on the road, you would stop and call 911. Why? Because that person's going to die. But how come it's us? We see people that their spirit is dying. We don't call 911. We don't assist them. We don't help them. That person, at least he's going to have akhir. He's in a car accident. He's going to possibly have akhir. These people that we are not saving, they are giving their akhirat eternal damnation. And we don't want to do anything about it. So one of the best solutions for this is doing this collective amr ma'ruf nahy munkar collectively together. When we form communities and masjids, we come together, then we can help others, and they come down and sit here and they say, oh, it's Los Angeles, yes, but there's a lot of believers, there's a lot of religious people. It helps them, it helps guide them, and they slowly change. the way. The fact that you're attending here and giving this foundation, to LA area, LA County, this is a great help, your participation in helping command the good and enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. May Allah, inshallah, grant us the tawfiq to do our wajibat, especially this wajib. May Allah, inshallah, give us courage to perform our wajibat, inshallah. Take away fear and huzn from us. Give victory to the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salam, to cure all those who are sick and to bless the souls of our departed, and ta'jeel of the Imam of the age with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.